It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I'm Caleb Jones, and this is the Alpha Male 2.0 podcast. And let's talk about your body. What? Yes. There is a term that I discuss a lot called OBW, or Obsolete Biological Wiring, and I will summarize it briefly before I get into it. If you've read my books, you already know where I'm going with this. We, generally speaking, have the bodies and brains and psychology not of modern-day, high-tech, 21st century evolved humans, but instead of cavemen from 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, with a little loincloth and a little spear, huddled in the cave in the dark, scared of saber-toothed tigers and other tribes and all that stuff, and kind of grunting at each other and using hand signals. That caveman has the same body and brain that you do, and your body and brain were designed to facilitate his lifestyle, not your lifestyle. Why are so many people fat today? Because the caveman body was made to store fat, because the caveman body, i.e. your body, knew that it would go long, long stretches without eating food. That was normal for the caveman. Is that true today? No. Even very, very poor people have an overabundance of high-calorie food. That's why everybody's fat today. Not because people have no self-control, although that's a factor. Not because people have bad genetics, although that's a factor. It's because we have bodies that are vastly outdated to the modern-day era in which we live. Now, here's the trick. You will either be unaware of these, or in some more extreme cases, I see a lot of this on the internet, you will defend these biological needs. So, first of all, you may not be aware of it. So when you are dating a woman as, let's say, an FB or MLT, you're dating her, but she's not your girlfriend, okay? And maybe you see on her social media she's partying with a bunch of guys or a bunch of friends, and there's some guys in there, right? And you immediately get this surge of jealousy, of concern, right? Like, what? Right? You know what I'm talking about. Don't tell me you don't know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. You know that feeling. We've all felt it. I haven't felt it in many, many, many years. Decades, in fact, because I was aware of this OBW and cleaned it out of my system. I don't like things that make me unhappy, so I wiped it out. So I don't give a shit now, but I remember those days. I remember being a normal guy, and I remember feeling feelings of jealousy for literally no reason. I mean, if this is your serious girlfriend or wife and she's out partying with a single guy, that would be different. But this is just some random woman you're dating, and you see some random pictures of her with some random guys. They could even be her brothers or her cousins, and you immediately go, ooh, and you get this feeling, a surge of jealousy or anger or whatever it is. That's OBW. That is not coming from anywhere rational. That is not coming from any real concern that is logical and real in the real world. That is purely coming from your outdated biology, your need to feel territorial with women when, back when you were a caveman 100,000 years ago, there was maybe 3 or 4 girls in the tribe of sexual age that you could be attracted to, and it would be pretty hard to get with them because there were so many other guys in the tribe of all ages. So you are now wired to feel jealous, at least in many cases, for literally no reason. And the typical man has no idea this system is going on. All he knows is that he's feeling jealous, and he wants to get mad or sad or scared, or he wants to go kill somebody. He's not sitting down and thinking, wait a second. The reason my biology and the reason my outdated psychology is reacting this way is because of outdated DNA that was outdated literally thousands upon thousands of years ago that has no meaning now in the real world. I have said this before, and I'll say this again because I want to keep drilling this into your head. There are more women, unless you live in a small town. If you live anywhere near a major city, there are more women within a 5-mile radius drive of your home, more attractive women, I should say, women you'd be attracted to, that you could ever hope to have sex with for the rest of your life. Women are not this scarce commodity that your outdated biology and your outdated psychology think they are. They're not. So your biology is outdated. So you have to first identify it. Now, the next level beyond this are men who are aware of these things, but defend them. So several years ago, there was a big book that took the internet, or at least portions of the internet, by storm, called Sperm Wars. And it talked about how all kinds of things, like how your sperm is designed to fight other sperm because If you ejaculate inside a woman who already had sex with a guy a few days ago and his sperm is still in there, your sperm needs to fight the other sperm and you have this biological imperative to reproduce, and how the penis is shaped like a shovel, and it's also a shovel/vacuum to not only put sperm into a woman, but suction out the other sperm, and how you have this overwhelming need to procreate with women of childbearing age, mid to late teens is the ideal age. And a bunch of guys, now, I don't know if these are scientific facts or not. They probably are. They actually tend to bolster a lot of what I talk about, that human beings are not designed to be long-term sexually monogamous, which is a fact. So I like that aspect of it. The problem is a lot of guys, another book like this is, by the way, is The Selfish Gene. But a lot of guys took this book and books like it, and they still do this, and they defend them. And they say, well, yes, of course you should get jealous because you have a biological imperative to impregnate as many women as you can. And if a woman is pregnant from another guy, she can't get pregnant from you. So that makes perfect sense. Hey, Caleb, you should read Sperm Wars. In other words, they're defending the negative feelings and conditions that your obsolete biology causes. They point at a certain book or a certain article and say, well, yes, the reason men do this and the reason men should do this and the reason men feel these ways and that ways and the reason women feel these ways and that ways is because, according to this book and this article, they're biologically wired to X, Y, and Z, so that therefore it is good. In other words, the body is biologically created to do X, therefore X is good. Here's another example I will talk about a lot. I've had this discussion many times in the past with men about women over the age of 33. And as I've talked about before, ASD increases the older a woman gets, and it spikes out at 33. And so if you go on a first date or second date with a woman over the age of 33, and you try to have sex with her on that first date or second date, sometimes even third date, your odds of success are extremely low. She's going to actually get upset with you because that's, quote, not appropriate. She's a lady. She, quote, doesn't do that anymore. Whereas if she is 24 years old, your odds are pretty damn good because her ASD isn't nearly as high. So what these women will do is that they will go out on dates with beta males and they will screen out alpha males. They will screen in very submissive, obedient, needy betas who make decent incomes, and they'll go on a first date, often a dinner date, and then they'll go on a second date, a dinner date, and then they'll go on a third dinner date, then a fourth dinner date, then and if the guy tries to have sex, she'll say, no, that's not appropriate. All good things come to those who wait, and I'm worth the wait. All kinds of ASD Disney defense mechanisms. And these beta males will go, oh, okay. And they'll keep dating her for as long as she lets them. And if these beta males are lucky, and often they aren't, because often by the fourth or fifth date, she's back on Match.com and she's found a different guy. So she dumps the poor schlub and does the same thing over and over again with the next guy on the list. But if the guy's lucky, then they eventually have sex on the fifth or sixth or seventh date after he's promised some kind of exclusivity or some kind of relationship. And as a beta male, he is only too happy to promise these things. So I will talk about how that model sucks. And I've said this in YouTube videos, I've said this in my blogs, you need to have sex first, relationship second. You cannot get into a relationship and then start having sex. That is the opposite of how it's supposed to work. You need sexual compatibility and some sort of sexual connection before you can actually know that this person is someone you want to be in a long-term relationship with. So the model I just listed out, the over 33 woman provider hunter model, is a model that I think sucks. But I will have men now, not women, men, defend that model. They'll say, well, yes, Caleb, that's exactly how she should do it. She is looking for her biological wiring is such that she knows her time to make children is coming to an end soon. So she needs to snag a beta male as fast as she can so that she can have kids or get married before she hits the wall or whatever excuse. Therefore, it is a good thing. Now, here's the problem. When women do this, do they end up in happy long-term relationships or marriages? The answer is no. If you look at the statistics, the answer is a huge no. Women who follow this model, who screen for a boring beta male, when they get that boring beta male, they will, within a few years, usually within 3, get bored with that beta male, dump his dumbass, and then go back on the dating sites and look for a new beta male. They will not have this wonderful Disney fairy tale marriage or relationship that they're seeking in most cases. Yes, there are exceptions, but the exceptions prove the rule. So no, their biological wiring is still wrong. That is not what they want, and that is not what they end up with. Their biological wiring continues to make them unhappy. It is not a condition where just because your body or your brain is designed to do something that made sense 170,000 years ago, it is therefore valid today. It doesn't make any sense. I will have other guys who say things like, well, of course I won't do non-monogamy. Of course I would never do that. If I want a kid, I want to know that kid is mine. Now, what are they doing? They are defending, either they're defending or unaware of OBW, obsolete biological wiring. I have to point out to these men, and it's sad that I have to point out to these men, in the modern era, not back when you were a caveman and this biological wiring was wired into your DNA, but now in the 2020s, you have these really cool things called paternity tests. You can get one at Walgreens for $20. You can even do them before the baby is born. And it tells you exactly if that baby is yours or not. So if it's not, you say, thank you, bitch, goodbye, and you leave. And you go find a better woman. And if it is, you rejoice. It's your kid. You don't have to worry anymore about the parentage of some child a woman has that you've had sex with, like some pioneer back in the, the mid 1700s. You've got to get over your obsolete biological wiring. Obsolete means it's out of date. It serves no purpose anymore. And if you are unaware of it, or worse, are aware of it, but defend it, you are guaranteeing a life of long-term unhappiness. That doesn't mean you'll be unhappy literally every day, but you're going to have regular occurrences of unhappiness because you're following a protocol that made sense a very long time ago that doesn't make any sense anymore. You would never start a business today, and instead of buying a laptop with Windows or Apple OS on it, you wouldn't go down to get an Apple IIe from 1982 to run your goddamn business, would you? That would be insane, wouldn't it? That would be very silly, wouldn't it? If you wanted to go out in the real world today and get laid, you wouldn't buy a dating book from the 1950s. Imagine reading a dating book written in 1952 on how to find a wife and actually doing what that book said today in the era of Twitter and Instagram. You would never do something that stupid, would you? You're being just as stupid when you let your body and your brain operate on autopilot based on systems and protocols that made sense 100,000 years ago when you were Grog the caveman sitting in a cave all by yourself with your little loincloth, clutching your little spear, getting pissed off about the only 2 or 3 teenage girls getting laid by the alpha male of the tribe, or what have you. That is stupid. You've got to understand that your brain and your body is an outdated computer from the 1970s. It's an Atari 2600. It's an Apple IIe. So if happiness is your objective, and as an Alpha Male 2.0, that is our objective, long-term, consistent, masculine happiness, if that's your objective, then when you feel these urges that don't make any sense in the real world, in the 2020s, in the high-tech 21st century, where women are plentiful, instead of just leaning into these feelings and experiencing them and just having them control you autopilot, and certainly instead of defending them because you read an article somewhere that said these feelings are natural and normal, you instead say, this is my outdated operating system. This is my outdated software sending incorrect signals to me, telling me to behave in ways that will make me even more unhappy than they are now. So I need to be aware of these feelings and mitigate these feelings. I'm not going to talk here about how to mitigate or manage feelings in OBW, your obsolete biological wiring. I talk about that in the book, The Unchained Man. If you go to alphamalebook.com, it's just $7. It's over 440 pages long. It's a pretty good deal. I suggest you get it. I talk about this in one of the chapters in great detail. My point is you have to be aware of the fact that this is happening, and this will make you unhappy, and there is no justification of it. Now, this brings up another topic. Well, okay, Caleb, obsolete biological wiring is obsolete and it makes me unhappy. But what about the biological wiring that actually makes me happy? Is that okay? So this gets a little complicated. There is biological wiring that is obsolete. There is biological wiring that is not obsolete. And there is biological wiring that is obsolete, but okay. What? Yes, I will explain. So first you have biological wiring, right? You have biological wiring that says you need 6, 7, 8 hours of sleep a night, whether you feel like it or not, right? There's nothing you can really do about that. That is hard-coded biological wiring. You have to take a piss several times a day, right? You got to do that. There's nothing really you can do about that. It's just part of being a human being, at least at the moment. Down the road, decades down the road, we can transcend our human bodies. Maybe we won't have those problems anymore. But today, At least for the next few decades, we got to deal with these problems. So there's nothing you can really do about hard-coded biological wiring that doesn't compel you to do something that damages you. It's just something you can't control, something out of your control. You got to do it. So that's the first set. The next set is obsolete biological wiring that causes you unhappiness. Being jealous, being territorial, racism to a strong degree, tribalism to a strong degree makes you angry. With women, it's often the desire to have babies way too soon or with the wrong guy. These are obsolete biological factors that make you less happy, and these are things you need to identify, mitigate, and if you can, eliminate. If you can't eliminate them, you need to at least mitigate them. That is your job as an alpha male 2.0. Now, what about obsolete biological wiring that makes you happy? So here's an example. I've had guys ask me this. Well, Caleb, you have the biological urge to have sex because it feels good, but the point of sex is procreation. If you don't want any more children, then sex doesn't serve any purpose. So isn't then the desire to have sex obsolete biological wiring if you're done having kids? So in my case, I'm done having kids. I'm almost 50. I'm quite done. I've had 2. I'm good. I'm good now. I don't want any more kids, but I still have a lot of sex. So the purist, the biological purist would say that is obsolete biological wiring. You don't need to have sex anymore. You're done procreating. So the fact that you want to have sex will make you less happy. Good point. Very interesting point. Here's my answer. I have taken that desire, the desire to have sex, and I have built a system around that desire where it makes me extremely happy. Extremely happy. First of all, let me back up a second. Having sex has all kinds of tremendous health benefits that have nothing to do with procreation. I've written about these in my blogs. I've talked to doctors about this, researchers. You can read articles about this. There's all kinds of health benefits when you have frequent sex, especially when you're a man, but when you're a woman too. Testosterone, better sleep, and so on. There's all kinds of health benefits to it. Moreover, you may know this from your own experience. If you have sex, often you feel better after having sex. So one of the reasons I have sex is so I can focus more on my work. If I'm distracted having sex, if I have sex, I don't have to worry about it. But that's not the only reason I have sex. That's not even the primary reason I have sex. I have sex because it's enjoyable. So I have built a system, Alpha Male 2.0, FBs, MLTR, OLTR, over which I can have sex on my terms when I want, with women I find attractive, whenever I want, and that makes me very, very happy. I was asked a long time ago, and I wrote an article as a response to this question. This guy said, hey, Caleb, if you could take a pill that would completely remove your desire for sex, would you take it? And my answer, it was a complicated answer. You can read that article if you want. But my answer was no, because having sex brings me tremendous pleasure. Now, it brings me pleasure because I took the time and effort to build a system around having sex, unlike 99% of men who just go out and have sex willy-nilly. What does the typical guy do? He's horny, so he goes out and has sex. Then he gets one-itis. Then he falls in love. Then he gets monogamous. Then she dumps him. Then he cries. Then he goes back and has some more sex, right? And he repeats the same process over and over again. Then he gets divorced, on and on and on. Alpha Male 2.0, you don't have any of these problems. If the women leave, 94% come back. If they break up, you don't care. If you get divorced, you do lose nothing because you're in an OLTR marriage, and on and on and on. So I have a system in place now in my life. It's a system I've had for many, many, many years now. It's kind of an autopilot at this point, where I have sex whenever I want, and it makes me very, very happy, even though there is no reproductive imperative behind the reasons I have sex. I have sex because I feel better after sex. There are health benefits to sex, and I find sex highly enjoyable. So I've built a system around that OBW, if that makes sense. I don't just justify the OBW. I don't just blindly react to the OBW. That is an area where I have managed the OBW. By the way, one more aspect of this. Another negative reaction that you can have to this OBW stuff is the traditional right-wing, traditional religious conservative who says, well, you want to have sex, but that's wrong. That's evil. That's sinful. You shouldn't want that. There's something wrong with you. Or the over 33 left-wing feministy attitude of sex of, well, when a man is horny, he's just being immature. He's being immature. He needs to fucking grow up and be an adult. And an adult man, a quality gentleman, doesn't have sex unless it's with his committed girlfriend, blah, 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 blah. It's interesting how these far right-wingers, these far left-wingers actually match a lot on their societal opinions. Isn't that interesting? Food for thought on that one. But anyway, that's another negative reaction, is to look at something like the desire for sex and turn it into something evil. Instead of saying this is a problematic thing, that requires a system in place. Now, if you can't place a system around your sex, then yes, it might be a good idea to take that pill, that mythical pill that takes away your sexual desire. Fine. I would much rather you figure out how to take your sex life and plug it into a system like Alpha Male 2.0, where you're going to be happy instead of pissed off all the time, or reactive all the time, or have all kinds of chaos in your life. None of which is a problem for the Alpha Male 2.0. If you need more help with this part of your life, join smic.com. There is a free training webinar there. You can watch that if you want. That is also my coaching and podcast program. You are more than welcome. I will see you very, very soon. Bye.